Hey guys, Saber here and welcome back to another new deck guide here on my channel. This time we're gonna talk about Chess Rune. Yeah, you know it, it's time to chess it up. So let's take a look at the deck list. Of course, we are playing all of the chess archetype cards. Mystic King, Mystic Queen, Magical Rook, Magical Knight, and Magical Strategy. But we're going to look further and ask you a question. Why are Queen and King called Mystic King and Mystic Queen and not Magical King and Queen? I mean, it's a magical rook. It's magical knight, magical strategy, and all of them summon magical pawns. So maybe you can answer me this in the comment section below. But let's look a little bit further into our deck list. We also play 3 cards here. This card is basically another piece of chess support because it summons a copy of another one play point follower, which in most cases will be a magical pawn. I could see cut this card down to 2 copies per deck, because if you draw it and don't have a pawn generator in hand, it feels pretty terrible. Yeah, we play 3 of Insight. Not I don't need to say anything about it. It's just a good card. Draws us deeper into our deck, helps us find our chess pieces, and for the few Spellboost cards that we have in here, Raining Blades, it also subtracts 1 for its cost, so it's super solid. Next up, we play 3 copies of Greater Will. 2 play point draw a card, so basically a more expensive Insight, but with the upside of also giving the enemy an enemy following an effect. Until the start of your next turn, reduce damage dealt to 0. This applies to attacks and as well as effects. So you can target a big enemy follower, like the 10-10 Shinigami that Kuon summons, and it will just deal no damage to you next turn. Or you can target the enemy leader to deactivate leader effects, like Full Blast Scanner for a turn, which can be pretty damn helpful. Next up, we are playing 2 copies of Sacred Bird of Wisdom, which we will, in most places will play for the 1 play point accelerate to restore 2 defense to our leader and draw a card. So basically an insight, which also heals us for 2. Sometimes you want to play him for 2 play points to just clear the board, especially against aggressive matchups when you go second and you don't have your magical strategy to contest the board. If you want to play this deck on a more vial-friendly base, you could cut Sacred Birds of Wisdom and just play Dream of an Adventure. It basically does the same. It's 2 play point draw cards, and if you draw a spell, you also heal 2. As you can see, we play 20 spells this deck, so you have a 50% chance to draw into a spell and heal for 2. So there's a pretty big chance that the vial scores will go down by 2. Next up, as I already said, 3 Mystic Queen. This is one of the best chess cards in this entire archetype, because in itself it can generate up to 3 to 4 pawns per turn. If you evolve it, you get a 0 cost pawn, and you play the 0 cost pawn, you get 2 play point card Magical Strategy, which can summon up to 2 pawns if you already are at 8. And if you're not at 8, it only summons 1, but then my lady will summon another 1, so she will generate 3 magical pawns minimum. Then we also play 3 copies of Counter Magic. It's another good 2 play point card that we can slot in. It helps against aggro and also protects our face. Just a solid card. Then we also play 3 copies of Stories of a Lifetime. It has the same effect as stuff like Insight and Greater Will and Sacred Bird. just draw us deeper into our deck, find our chess pieces, especially our Mystic King, because if you don't draw him, you don't reduce his cost. And if you draw out 15 cards already, Souls of Lifetime can also refresh your hand by drawing 4 cards. So let's say you dropped your Mystic King, you dropped your Magical Knights, your hand is pretty empty, but your opponent managed to clear it and you're in a kind of a rough spot, you need a fresh hand, you can play Stories of Lifetime and basically draw to full. Next up, of course, we're playing 3 magical strategies. It's arguably a really good draw card. It's 2 play upon draw a card, summon a magical pawn, and then if you already summoned 8 magical pawns, it draws 2 cards, summons 2 pawns, and the pawns also get +1 attack, so they are 2/1 rushes. This card is just pretty solid. Overall, the chess archetype is, in my opinion, a pretty solid archetype. It's just missing like one more chess piece to be fully complete. Because you will see in the replays, sometimes you just don't draw your chess pieces and then you're in a pretty rough spot. Next up, we are playing 3 copies of Uranus, the new legendary. And yes, of course, you don't need to run them. You can play other stuff. You could, for some example, play Spellboost follower, which deals 3 damage on fanfare and also on Evo, just to contest the board. You will play enough spells to reduce this cost instead of Uranus. Because in the early game they're doing similar jobs. They contest the board and help you stabilize. A banish 3 from Uranus is in some matchups, for example against artifacts, way better than deal 3 to a random enemy follower or to a target enemy follower. Because banishing artifact names allows you to slow down their game plan. You know, they want to get 6 artifacts destroyed and you can just banish them. Or against Last Word Shadow, you can banish their last words, and so on. And because we draw a lot, I told you we play Stories of a Lifetime, we play Magical Strategy, Insights, Sacred Birth, Greater Will. All of these cards draw us more cards, so we have a pretty easy time to go below 20 cards to get his auto evolve, which also heals us for 3, which once again is really good against aggressive decks. And if you get below 5 cards in your deck, he's basically another finisher. So I had games where Mystic King alone wasn't enough to seal the deal, but I could play one Uranus for 9 damage face, then played Mystic King for another 9 damage. Next up, we're playing another draw card. We're playing Angel's Blessing. It's one of the best draw cards, especially if going second, because 3 mana draw 2, it's fine effect. 1 mana draw 2 and also heal your leader by 2 is insane. Just solid 3 off. Next up, next piece of chess cards, Magical Rook. We are just playing all the chess cards at 3. It's a ward on fanfare, summons 2 magical pawns, and if you evolve it, it also heals your leader. Pretty good against aggressive matchups, but you will most likely evolve other stuffs, like My Lady. But if you happen to evolve him, he's pretty good. Next, I'm pretty sure next up. The next chess card to look at is Magical Knight. 6 play point, 3/2 storm, summon 2 magical pawns. But also has the fact that it reduces its cost for every magical pawn that leaves play. It's a similar card to your king, that you want him in hand, but even more so because he needs to see your magical pawns leave play to reduce its cost, while you can just draw into the king and at the end of your turn he will reduce itself. Magical Knight is a piece that allows you to really high roll your king. So if you have a Magical Knight, or let's say 2 Magical Knights in hand, and you start playing Magical Strategy on turn 2 into Magical Rook on turn 3, and you can trade all of this in, you both knights suddenly at 3 play points. Then on your turn 4, let's say I go second, you drop my lady, you evo my lady, play your 0 cost pawn, play your Magical Strategy. Suddenly you had 6 pawns destroyed, both Magical Knights are at 0 or one is at 0, doesn't matter. You play your knight, can do 3 face damage, also trade the last 2 pawns, and if you have a king in hand, he reduces itself to 5 play points, so you can high roll king on 5. It's pretty unlikely because you need a perfect hand and you need to go second. I think you also can do it going first, but then you need like 2 knights minimum in hand at the start of the game, plus Magic Strategy, plus rook, plus queen. So pretty hard. Then also you need to draw into your king. Not that likely, but king on 6 is pretty likely. Almost the final card. Let's look at Raining Blades. Raining Blades is the only Spellboost card that we run in this deck. 9 play points. With effect, give +3/+3 to an allied follower and deal 3 damage to a random enemy follower. This card helps you out to end the game. So if you have both in hand and you play your king, you not only have 12 damage on board with a double Raining Blades, you're suddenly at 18 and just need an evo to finish your opponent off. Also, you can use it more aggressively on your magical knights to push more early damage in case you didn't find your king and just wants to pressure your opponent. So, it's a solid card. You could drop it down to 1 off. I wouldn't play 3. It's a fine card. And last but not least, final and let's say strongest piece, your big payoff, your Mystic King. 30 play point, 13, got freshly buffed down to the 30 play points. If 8 magical pawns left play this match, subtract 8 from this cost of this card at the end of the turn. So if you have 8 magical pawns that are destroyed or have left play, he will go down to a 5 cost, and the following turn he will go down to a 0 cost. So if you have double king in hand, you can play 1 king on turn 5, and the next king on turn 6 will be 0 play point, so you can play stuff alongside it. Like you can trade your magical pawns in that are 3/2 storms if you need to clear, for example, opponent's wards, and then you can just drop your magical knight for, I don't know, 5 play points, because it doesn't matter, because you just play the 0 cost Mystic King. So that's it for the decklist, and now I can show and that's it for the decklist. Now we'll show you the best and the worst of Chess Rune. Have fun, guys, and if you like this video, please consider subscribing and leave a comment down below.
誇りと命の奪い合いだ。
私は化け物なのでしょうか。
糸を察してみてよ。さようならとは言わせません。
お行きなさい。
さようならとは言わせません。
果たせ作られし意味を。
カードが導いてくれます。
残酷だよ。
悪しきよ、燃えよ、正されよ。好きではありません。
我が翼、正す炎。
侮ったな。
良き道を。
また咲くのです。また咲くのです。つまんの。
育み壊す破滅の大二楽章。何もわからない。我慢はいらない。壊し尽くす。
さようならとは言わせません。
脆弱すぎる。
私はなぜ。
誇りと命の奪い合いだ。
邪魔するなら引け。みんなできれいにするな。
書き上がった。
ねえ、何して遊ぶの？いったと。冷たくされたの。
うざったいんだけど。
ねえ、何して遊ぶの？ねえ、何して遊ぶの？この一手で。いったと。
黒き花心で枯れ果てる。焼き焦がす。あのさ、森から出ていけよ。何すんだよ。
いったと。
温州根深く。
ねえ、何して遊ぶの？ねえ、何して遊ぶの？ガガでごいなの。みんなできれいにするの。丹田、新鉄、思いを届け。
書き上がった。書き上がった。
この一手で。いったと。
木漏れ日は光、我は羽ばたく。
甘く見るなよ。
森に刺すは未来の光。
何して遊ぶの？
侮ったな。
いったと。にゃ
不起奔放。神らしいだろう。無賛しろ。どうでもいい。
輝きはまだ。
いったと。ねえ、何して遊ぶの？
黒き花心で枯れ果てる。燃え尽きろ。あだなる種は枯れる末。
ねえ、何して遊ぶの？ねえ、何
不起奔放神らしいだろう。無賛しろ。
恩愁根深く。
小柄しですか？
我が身は神秘の重木なの。
ねえ、何して遊ぶの？ガガでこいなの。私の負けだ。
誇りと命の奪い合いだ。
五色絢爛万家の法を。この一手で。カードが導いてくれます。カードが導いてくれます。
神を凌駕し唯一に至れ。
お行きなさい。お行きなさい。カードが導いてくれます。
侮ったな。
占いとは羅針盤。ではまた。
試練は進む。海図に爪痕を書き込もうぜ。
この地に浄化を。
俺とこいつの筒が吠える。
ではまた。
脆弱すぎる。
クルーも大募集。絶大。
轟け天井の果てまでも。
吹雪銀氷、凍てつけ氷雪。
私を超えるか。
熱は消える。
ここまでだな。誇りと命の奪い合いだ。
占いましょう。未来を、明日を。この一手で。
書き上がった。されば生徒は文学である。
予言を届けましょう。
アヘテイフなら人そのものと。
メイメ
侮ったな。
イメイメイメイ。
無駄など一つも。
お行きなさい。
書き上がった。書き上がった。書き上がった。
うぜえんだよ。
杖をぐるりん。ミラクルドッパー。
私の力をカードに込める。
この一手で。決まっちゃった。
カードが導いてくれます。
カード起動。
五行の極み、拝んで消えな。
杖をぐるりん。ミラクルドッパー。私が導きます。
炎、雷、センスね。
私じゃまだ。
誇りと命の奪い合いだ。
神はいない。私が救う。緑の光よ。
この一手で。
なる神。
カードが導いてくれます。
この一手で。
お行きなさい。我が身は思考、永遠の輝き。サファイアに祈りよ。救済を受け入れよ。聖なるサファイアよ。眩しいでしょ。祈りよ。
侮ったな。
まあまあね。力を及ばす。さあご注目、さあご注目。すがるものなどない。夢中になるでしょ。
脆弱すぎる。
この一手でおひねりどうも。おひねりどうも。
見定めた。
緑の光よ。
半月の祝福の股間
ほいった
半月の祝福の股間
さあご注目。
不起奔放神らしいだろ。不起奔放神らしいだろ。無賛しろ。
おひねりどう
無
も。
賛しろ。
もう大丈夫です。
愚装は拳、金剛の座なり。
神などいない。